Okay, we're done Kufir Gimel Halacha Ches. Nasan Yisrael Kader Al Eish. Yid put a pot on fire, this silka, and then he took it off. And then a guy put it back on to finish the cooking. Also, the food is also because it was cooked by the guy. Unless the food was already a third cooked, when he took it off. Meaning, if the Yid took it off and it was already a third cooked, then it's considered that the Yid did a cooking, and then the fact that the guy did cooking later doesn't bother us. If the Yid had taken it off before it was a third cooked, before it was Kamach ben Drusai, then we say the Yid didn't do anything, and then the food is Bishul. Okay, now, before we get to the main part of the din, the end of the din says that Kamach ben Drusai is when the food is a third cook. Okay, now, as you probably know, there's a machlokes Rishonim, whether Kamach ben Drusai means these people who would eat food even if it was barely edible, so that's considered barely edible, whether that's when it's a third cooked or half cooked. So there's a machlokes Rishonim what the shiur is. So the Shulchan Aruch is saying that it's a third cooked, and Beis Yosef says, why does he paskin that it's a third cooked? Here it's only a safek drabanan. Since it's only a safek drabanan, so we'll make it to say a third cooked. Okay? I mean, over here it's a cool to say it's a third cooked. If the Yid cooked it even, let's say it takes an hour to cook, and the Yid cooked it for 20 minutes, it would be a third cooked. And it would take 30 minutes to make it half cooked. So therefore, to say that a Yid cooking it Kamach ben Drusai is a third is a kula.
That's how it's determined by
I'm using that as a no. There's a question whether it's determined by time or edibility. For simplicity, we're using the time.
Okay.
So if we say, if 20 minutes would be a third cooked, then 30 minutes would be half cooked. So it's a kula to say even 20 minutes is enough. So the Bishul says, therefore, we'll make it to say Kamach ben Drusai is when it's a third cooked. Okay, that's why it's being made.
And Shabbos, you would say half cooked.
Get that in a second. Okay, so I'll mention in a second. So Dr. Kashrus says, so what would be if there would be a halacha in Bishul where Kamach ben Drusai, it would be a cool to say the other way. The cool would be to say it's half cooked. Then we would say half cooked also. I mean, we're not passing it to third cooked. It's just an example. Here's the example that because here's the cool is to say a third cooked. But the Dr. Kashrus says that if it would be half cooked would be the cool, we would have said that also. Okay. Now that's exactly with what you said, which is in Hilchos Shabbos. The Shulchan Aruch says that if there it's a chumrah to say it takes. Saying the food is cooked, it's a chumrah to say it has to be cooked more cooked before it's considered Kamach ben Drusai, and there it's a shayla for the rice. So the Mechaber says it has to be half cooked. That's the halacha in Hilchos Shabbos and Reish and Daled. The Mechaber brings over there that it has to be half cooked in order to Kamach ben Drusai. Okay, so the Chacham Yamin has a question. He says he has an example of what the Dr. Kashrus said. The Dr. Kashrus, to me, it's not clear if he gives an example. The Dr. Kashrus just said if there would be a case where it would be a cool to say half, then that would be true. Well, there is a case. The next halacha talks about what happens if a guy cooked the food first, and then the Yid came on. Okay, our case was that the Yid cooked it first, and then the guy did the second half. What happens if it was reversed? And the Mechaber Shita is that if the guy cooked it Kamach ben Drusai, then the food is usher, and the Yid it's finished. It's hopelessly usher. If the guy cooked it Kamach ben Drusai, the Ramah is going to be arguing on that. But within the Shita of the Mechaber said if the guy cooked the Kamach ben Drusai, then the food is also forever. Okay, so how much is Kamach ben Drusai? So over there, the cool is to say Kamach ben Drusai takes longer. I mean, let's say in that case, the guy cooked it for 20 minutes out of the hour. So there the chumrah would be to say is Kamach ben Drusai is short amount of time. So we should say Safek Drabanan L'Kula and Kamach ben Drusai should be half an hour. So that should be the case to be making. Okay, the question is, that's the next halacha. Okay, in halacha ches, the Mechaber says, cooked in Kamach ben Drusai, shehu shlish b'shula. There's a Mechaber says it in this halacha. In the next halacha, he talks it also Kamach ben Drusai. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't say Kamach ben Drusai, shehu chatzi b'shula. So how could you think that it's not like
change atmosphere?
It's not like you think that it's not like there's a halacha 20 sifim later. This is the next halacha that says Kamach ben Drusai. So if you think that in that case the Mechaber would be maker to say Kamach ben Drusai is chatzi b'shulai, how could he not say something like that? How could it be that in our halacha it says Shehigil Kamach ben Drusai shehu shlish b'shulai? Then 10 words later it says Kamach ben Drusai, and that tells shehu chatzi b'shulai.
It's the same thing.
What is it? The reading is that it's exactly the same shiur. So here the Dr. Kashrus is saying that the din is it's only a shlish b'shulai because it's a kula. And therefore, in another case, Chatzi Bishul would be the kula, we would do that also. How are you going to do it? Then that case of where it's a kula, to say the longer shear, is the next halacha. Okay, so Chagam wants to say, he says, no, he doesn't agree with that, with the Dakei Tshuva. The Dakei Tshuva is not quoting anybody. Okay? Usually Dakei Tshuva quotes people. That's what he does. He's a leaker of the different Tshuvas written on it. If he's saying his own thing, which is really based on the basis. But the Chagam says, really the Mechab Paskins, that Kamachim and Drusai is Shlish Bishul. Most Shulchan hold like that, Shlish Bishul. This that he's machmir in Hilchos Shabbos is not because there it's a deraisa, here it's a drabanan. It's because over there, because of the chumrah of Shabbos, we're extra machmir to say even Chatzi Bishulai, and that's a little bit merumas. That if you look in the Mishmur over there, the Mishmur says if a person's really stuck, they could be samach that even in Hilchos Shabbos that Kamachim ben Drusai is Shlish Bishulai. Okay, so why would he say that? As in, because really that's the
Hilchos Shabbos, we hold that it's Chatzi Bishul.
Chatzi Bishul.
For Shiur, it's a chumrah for Shiur.
Where it's a chumrah, yes, to say Chatzi Bishul. So and according the thing that's hard to read according to that pshat is that the Beis Yosef says over here, his word I'll read. Kedaihem Rashi v'Rash b'lismachleim be'isur b'shui goyim drabanan. Beis Yosef in explaining why it should be shlish b'shui, he says it's kedai lismachleim by drabanan, which doesn't read very well for Hilchos. He's going to say that means is here we could follow the Ikar Adin because it's the drabanan. There where it's a really serious deraisa, don't follow the Ikar Adin. Okay, it doesn't read very well.
Why doesn't it read well? That's exactly what he's saying. That by Bishul, Akum Meko, and by Shabbos, he machmir.
What would be if you heard the words of Beis Yosef? Kedai him Rashi v'Rash b'lismachleim be'isur b'shui goyim drabanan. What happens if Chatzi Bishulai would be kula, like is Bishulai Akum? What would be the din?
Chatzi Bishul would be a kula?
Let's say it would be a kula. You missed that part. You missed that question. What would be if that would be the din?
No.
So then we'd be making about that also. That's what Dakei Tshuva says.
Oh, no.
So if you're saying it's just because by the Rabbanans we're makel, so then in the next halacha the kula is going to go the other way. So he's saying, look, he doesn't mean that. What he means is that since it's the Rabbanan we follow the Ikar Hadin, by deraisas we have to be extra careful and machmir for the other shittas also. Okay, so it doesn't read very well. So again, I mean each pshat, I don't know what the answer is, but each pshat has a doichik to it. Okay,
Isn't that the same thing?
The what?
Isn't that the same thing?
It's saying one thing is that the Ikar Hadin is a third bishul. For every day we pass in a third. Shabbos is a special chumrah, we go half. A special chumrah for Shabbos. Like an extra chumrah. But for everything else, we just pass them like the Ikar Din is. The Ikar Din is the third, it's a third. Okay, so neither pshat, each pshat has a doichik to it. Okay, this pshat has a doichik because the Shur doesn't sound like that from the Beis Yosef. The Dakei Tshuva seems to be reading it right in what the Beis Yosef said. But the Dakei Tshuva pshat also has, we have a time in there. The next din, Shur doesn't sound like that. Okay, so we leave it as a question. Again, that next din is really not Negatas. We're Ashkenazim, we'll find out at a different time. But we don't pass like that Mechaber, but it's Negata, whatever. Okay. Now, back to our regular din. The din itself said that if the Yid cooked the food less than Kamachim and Drusai, okay, we're using time, even though that may not be the din. Let's say it takes an hour to cook the food, and he cooked it for 10 minutes. Okay, so it was less than Kamachim and Drusai. And then he takes it off the fire, and the guy finishes off the cooking, then the food is not kosher. Okay, it's Bishul. So what's the pshat? The Machim and Drusai is not, it only cooked for 10 minutes, it's not even edible at all, so you didn't cook anything. Okay? So just worth it to clarify that there should be an obvious question. We've seen a bunch of times until now, the Yid doesn't have to do a significant part of the cooking. Right? If the Yid throws in a kisem, the Yid does a little bit, he's eish me'esh. He didn't do anything serious in the cooking, he just did a minimal amount. So how come in all these other halachas we let the Yid get by with any minimal contribution?
By Bishul.
And over here we're saying to him, until you make it edible, passably edible, it's not enough. Why in our case are we're saying if you only cooked it for 10 minutes, that wouldn't be good enough. But if you would have gone to a guy who was cooking food and you threw in a toothpick, that would have been enough. What, the toothpick is less than 10 minutes? So it's just worth it's worth speaking it out. Okay, that the difference is pretty clear, which is in the case we did a little contribution to the cooking, you were doing something in the cooking. Okay, you were doing the thing that made the food edible. They were cooking the food, in which you did a little contribution to that making the food edible. So even a little contribution in the cooking helps. But it's like saying, would it help to take the food out of the wrapper? That doesn't mean anything. You didn't do anything for the cooking. So here also the Yid, his 10 minutes worth is not the cooking, because cooking doesn't happen until you cross the line of being
making it quicker to be cooked. Just like, I'm still enhancing the cooking, according to your svara, by 10 minutes less that it has to be on the fire.
That's correct. But being as I didn't do anything that has to, we're looking at it is that for those first 20 minutes, it's not part of the cooking process. So like, when chopping up the food and taking it out of the package, that helps the cooking, but doesn't make a difference. You have to participate in the actual cooking. What you participated in was the not actual cooking. Okay,
There's
you could
something
argue.
afterwards, because halacha is according to Ramah, afterwards, if I finish off the cooking, let's say the guy cooks most of it, and then I put it and I do it, that's also called Yisroel.
That's different. That's different, because there, the food is now going from being passably edible to more edible. I'm making it more and more edible. Over here, we're looking at, you could argue on this. You could argue and say is, what are you talking about? If cooking takes 20 minutes, then the whole 20 minutes is part of that cooking. You could argue that. But the din is saying, it comes from a Gemara, the din is saying that until it's Kameicha ben Drusai, it's not even the cooking part of it, and therefore, even though you participated, you did something, but you didn't do something for the cooking itself, and therefore that doesn't count. Okay, now, our Gemara says that we asked, I'm going to tell you a kasha that we asked a few halachos ago, which was, in our din says, the Yid cooked it a little bit, he took it off the fire, and then the guy continued the cooking, it's asur. Okay, the Yid didn't finish the cooking. Question is, there's another Gemara, right next to it, very close to it. The other Gemara says, it's halacha vav, which says, if the Yid did some of the cooking, and the guy was hipech boy while he was cooking, then the food is still Bishul Yisroel. Okay, what does hipach boy mean? The simple translation of that is you flipped it over. Well, when you flip something over, it means you take it off the fire. Okay, this is
Why you move the coals around?
Okay, so
It's a heap of so you says heap of the body.
it's a question. What comes after the word hipech? Okay,
So it's over
but
the fire.
the simple reading, basically says the simple reading of the din is that you flip the food over. He says you flip the food over, then you took it off the fire. So how could one Gemara say that he takes it off the fire and the guy puts it back on? It's no good. And the other Gemara says if the Yid put it on and the guy flipped it over, then it's mutter. Make up your mind. Either take.
What's this discussion?
Basically, it's kasha.
Maybe it goes right over the fire.
What? So the Beis Yosef says, at that time I told you that the Beis Yosef says the answer is the word hipech does not mean he didn't lift it off the fire. Okay? Or some understand basically means that he lifted it off so little that it was still over the heat. Okay, but hipech doesn't mean the Beis Yosef says like he moved it around on the fire. So it's a darchik in the words hipech boy, but hipech boy doesn't mean what you think of it is that he was like flipping burgers, but he's moved it around, or he moved it so little that it still stayed over the heat the whole time. That's how the Beis Yosef learned, but that's not the simple reading of the Gemara. So the Bach,
You put something on the fire, you'll cook in 10 hours. And the guy moves it closer, he cooks in an hour.
that's exactly what the Gemara is talking about, and that's mutter.
That's what.
That's exactly what the Gemara is talking about. The Gemara says if the Yid did something that could have cooked it, I mean, not that it was so far away it would never cook, but it was could have cooked, and the guy made it faster, that's mutter.
Even if it wasn't Ben Drusai yet.
Correct, because the Yid's thing was able to cook it. But if he took it, they say, but if he took it off, if the guy picked it up and put it onto another pot or something like that would have been awesome. Okay? So that's what the Beis Yosef said. Okay, now, there's a riot to this Beis Yosef, which is going to come from Halacha Yud Aleph, which is in Halacha Yud Aleph, it's going to talk about what happens if a Yid was cooking his food, and he walked out of the house, leaving the guy behind. So do we have to be choishish that the guy did something, was mahapech the food, that's what it says of it, was he was mahapech the food in a way that make it bishlakim. Okay, maybe he did something before the time,
Was he destined to do this work, or he would do it on his own?
I don't know. But the Yid walked out of the house.
You got the questions working up on him.
So what the din is, we'll see in Halach Yud Aleph. Okay, we'll worry about Halach Yud Aleph that it is mutter in most cases. But the question is like this, well, wait a second. That implies that there's something that the guy could have done that would have made it treif. The guy could have been, by being mahapich boy, he would have made it. And then the shayla should be choishish that he was mahapich. What?
It says in Yud, it says v'inu deim soko ha'chavim. It says v'niachov v'shamro v'hafach bo.
So we don't know if he did his action before or after it was macha ben Drusai.
Right. I'm saying he adds in v'inu deim soko ha'chavim, which is mashma that he removed it. It's supposed to be v'hafach bo. So it's saying they're two different things.
So that saying to you is that there's such a thing that if the guy would have done taking soka at the wrong time, it would have been asur.
Right, I'm just saying that
What's the fish with it?
I'm just saying that v'havachbo and soko could be two different things.
It's fine, but then I'm saying that this is a riot to the Beis Yosef, that there is something that the guy could have done. The Yid put it onto the fire, he walked out of the house, there's something the guy could have done that would have made it bishlakim. Okay? You'll hear why maybe I should have said this in the other order. Just, you think to me, of course, that's obvious. Okay? Well, the answer, what I'm saying to you is because the Bach argues on this. The Bach doesn't like the Beis Yosef's teretz. He says, he doesn't understand it. He says like this. The difference between the two Gemaras is that in the Gemara in Halacha Vav, we said the Yid put it onto the fire and the guy was hipech boy. There, the guy was the one who took it off the fire. If the guy takes it off the fire, that case, it's still Bishul Yisroel. If the Yid put it on, and the guy took it off, even if the guy took it off before it got to Kamaycha ben Drusai, it would still be Bishul Yisroel. Our case, with our Gemara, where the Gemara says, if the Yid put it on the fire, the Gemara says, and the Yid took it off, and then the guy put it back on, that's because the Yid took it off the fire. Meaning, it's only, the Yid's action only ends if the Yid took it off the fire. If it was the guy who took it off the fire, no problem, it doesn't cause any problem. So when according to the Bach, I'm going to get in a second. According to the Bach, when the Gemara gives us two cases, it's being very medurik as to who took it off the fire. Okay, well that's what I'm saying to you, the raya from over here, from Halacha Yud Aleph. In Halacha Yud Aleph, the guy was the one who's suspected of taking it off the fire. Yet there's an example that would have been usher. One of those, if he did it the wrong way, it would have been usher. And so that's a raya to the basis. Okay. So now the Bach, the way he says it, and the way the priest explains it is. Sounds like he's saying like this. If I put food onto the fire, I'm the Yid, I put the food onto the fire, and I take it off, I'm ending my participation in the cooking. So when I end the participation in the cooking, so that makes it now, if it wasn't Kamaycha ben Drusai, what I did is over. I started to cook it. I ended my participation. I said, I'm over, I'm out of this over here. It hadn't yet gotten cooked, so it's usher. But if I put it on in a way that it gotten cooked, and then the guy came along, he has no right to end my cooking. Okay, I don't know exactly what that means. I don't know exactly what he's saying. He has like no right to stop my cooking. If I stopped it myself, good, I stopped it. But the guy has no right to come along and stop my cooking because I'm the one who's doing it. He can't stop me.
Obviously speaking of the case.
Yes, good, yes.
There was some where on Shabbos, something's plugged in. And the guy, I don't know, he moves it like a hot plate or something. And he takes it out and he moves it to someplace else.
He unplugs it?
He unplugs it and he plugs it in.
Okay.
So I think someone saying it's far that once it's unplugged, let's say it wouldn't be usable. You say it's Meister Shabbos now. You can't.
So the guy now did malacha for me.
Right.
Okay. Or do you say?
What do you say? Well, he had no right. He wasn't supposed to do that. No one instructed him to take it out. He just, for a reason.
So what? Tell me the story. What's the story? Why should it be mutter? If the guy Ramai says it was out.
I'm not benefiting. He just put it back where it was. He had no right to take it out, and he has to put it back the way it was.
Okay. So if you say the question is I had Hana from malacha on Shabbos, then you're right. I'm not having Hana because. We have to look at him as a package. So there's no Hana because he unplugged and replugged it. So we look at his actions as a package. What he did was he did nothing. I gained nothing from him. If I look at the big picture, as opposed to if it's a matter of did he do something for me, he did do something for me. He plugged it in.
I didn't ask him to do it.
You're saying by
so I could hear by Shabbos, maybe you'll say there's no Isser Hana. But over here,
it's a similar idea.
The Shaila is, it's not a question of like, the question is here is, did the Yid's action do the cooking? No, it didn't. His cooking, after 10 minutes, the guy pulled it off the fire. About Zorah, what?
And to be vatal on Zora.
That one.
A guy can be vatal on Zora.
His own avatar, therefore what? So what do you...
can't be vatal on someone else's Zora.
Right, so what's the...
So you're also here, so a Jew can be vatal his own cooking. A guy can't be vatal on his own.
Right, but why? What would be the reason? Why could the... How come the Yid can't... How come the guy can't stop his cooking? It's a practical thing. Did my cooking make it edible or not? No, it didn't, because after 10 minutes, someone pulled it off the fire. Who cares whether... It's not because you have to like, do something to take it off. It's really not clear to me what the... You know what I mean?
So now for me would be if the Yid told the guy to do it for him.
Yes. So the bottom is, if the Yid... That has to do with a din later on, which we're not going to talk about. If the Yid would have told him, that might have been different. Yes, that's correct. I didn't get to that yet.
Let me answer. The fire went out. The Yid put it on, and he walked away. He could have been finished cooking that way. Then the guy saw it was not lit, and he lit it for him.
I'm not sure. You say maybe according to the Bach that
might be okay.
So it's not the that by itself. You're talking about a case. That's right.
Yeah.
Situation
so the only difference is, I think that's what he's grumbling about, which is, in that case, my action couldn't have led to cooking. The fire went out. I thought I was doing something that was cooking, but when I says what I did wasn't...
So the guy blew it out. He bedafka blew it out.
Right, so in that case, it might be mutter. It might be according to the Bach. Now, the Chazal is a better question. The Bach is saying it depends whether it was a Yid or a guy who did it. The Chazal says, no, it doesn't. It doesn't matter if it was a Yid or a guy. It depends if it was the chef or the non-chef. You're saying is that somehow if I put the food onto the fire, the guy can't come along and be mavakta what I did. No, it's not because he's a guy. It's because only I can stop what I did. I put it on, I can take it back. This is what happens if another Yid would have come along and taken it off. So if you say you can't stop someone's action, If I put it on, you can't undo my action. You're not allowed to stop my cooking. Okay, so what's the difference if you're a yid or a guy? Let the other person have been a yid. A yid shouldn't be allowed to take it off. So the Bach is making a deal that the Gemara is talking about a yid and a guy, that one Gemara is a yid and one Gemara is a guy. No, it has nothing to do with a yid and a guy. It has to do with did the chef take it off? That was halacha vav. I'm sorry, it's halacha ches. Did the chef take it off? Or halacha vav? It's not the chef. Someone else took it. No, the point is who took it off the fire. If I put it on the fire and you took it off the fire and then the guy came along and cooked it, then it should be mutter. But the deal of the Gemara is that it has to do the bachsig is that a yid took it off or a guy took it off. It doesn't depend if it's a yid or a guy. It doesn't depend if it's the cook or the non-cooked. Okay, and also one of the Bach's rayas from we're not going to talk about halacha yudalef. There's a raya that the Bach can't hold like that. Okay, the Bach can't hold that if another yid would take it off, that it would be mutter. He does not hold like that. Okay, so the Bach, it really means that, but what in the world could be the difference between whether it's a yid or a guy? So, Chal Hashem wants to bring from a sefer. I don't have the sefer. I don't remember the name.
Google it.
I tried. An unusual sefer, okay, who says a different shot in the Bach, okay? And today's Durchik day, because it doesn't read very well into the Bach at all. But he says like this. He says, if a yid, this is maybe being Ram said, I'm not sure. But if a yid put the food onto the fire, and the guy took it off the fire, why is the guy putting it back on? So he says the guy is putting it back onto the fire because he's afraid of being caught, or he did the wrong thing to take it off. The yid put it on. The yid wanted it to keep on cooking. The guy, for whatever reason, took it off. So the guy is like sort of did the wrong thing to take it off. So when he's putting it back on, he's like, so to speak, sneaking it back onto the fire to continue the cooking that the yid was doing. He wasn't supposed to take it off. He's like sneaking it back in, when my kids pull something out of the microwave that their sister's making and slip in their thing quickly. When they put the original thing back in, they're just like trying to cover up for themselves. Okay, that's what they're being. The guy is covering up for himself for the fact that he took it off. So in Cain, he says, the guy's cooking of the food is not a kind of cooking that would lead to chasnus. It's a kind of cooking not of a guy who's trying to cook and be nice to you. He's a guy who's trying to cook just to cover up for the wrong thing that he did. And in Cain, that's not the kind of cooking that will lead to chasnas. That kind of cooking that also.
I hire a fellow to cook for me. That's not. You believe this got to.
So what you mean? So what you mean to ask is that we've seen a dozen times that even in times when the svar doesn't apply, we don't say if there's no svar doesn't apply, we're not make on. His example, one of the examples is you have a guy who's hired that most hold that doesn't make a difference. So what that he's hired doesn't make a difference. It could. We say in theory cooking leads to chasnas, so it others. Okay, but that's how this sefer learns pshat in the back. In which case, it makes sense if it's a yid or a guy. That the thing is that since the guy took it off, and it's not so much that the guy took it off, it's that the guy when he puts it back on is not trying to do cooking that would be nice to me. He's doing cooking to cover up for himself, to save himself, and therefore that's the thing that's not b'shlakim. Okay, so neither of the pshatim it reads too simply, and as Yossi tried to get him to say beforehand. Everybody agrees with the Beis Yosef pshat. Okay, the Taz shot right here on the page, and just so that everybody agrees, not like this Bach. So we go with what we have, which is that if the yid, what I didn't say, if the yid puts the food onto the fire and it gets cooked k'macha ben Drusai, it's Bishul Yisroel. If before it gets cooked k'macha ben Drusai, the food goes off the fire. Before it gets cooked k'macha ben Drusai, it gets off the fire, regardless of who takes it off the fire. Then it's only Bishul Yisroel if the yid finishes off the cooking. Either halacha and halacha vav. The halacha and halacha vav, like the Beis Yosef said, was talking about that we said that if a yid cooked before Kamach ben Drusai, the guy, and it could be moved around, it means it was moved around. But if the guy actually took it off the fire, then it would not be Bishul Yisroel. The guy actually pulled it off the fire before that happened. As it says in Hachavav, and basically,
just maybe I'm on my memory. That's according to the remark that says as long as they finish off the cooking. I mean, when you say finish off the cooking,
we're talking about the beginning of the cooking.
The beginning, not the end.
No, here the yid to the beginning of the cooking. When the yid to the end, that's going to be halacha. But when the yid to the beginning of the cooking, so if it was Kamach ben Drusai, of course it's mutter. If it was not Kamach ben Drusai and it came off the fire, then it's not Bishul Yisroel if a guy did the end of the cooking. But if the guy just moved it around, halacha v'olos, he just moved it around or something like that, then it's mutter.